This is The Sports Life.
It's all over, boys, girls, children, dogs, cats. Here's the snap, saying back to throw again. Pressure comes, throws it down the field. It is tipped up in the air, and that's the ball game right there. Indiana wins! Indiana has beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes, the #1 team in the country.
And Don Fisher, the legendary voice of the Hoosiers, if we were to ask him today, did you ever dream you would do an Indiana football team that's #1 in America and just beat the Buckeyes and just claim the outright championship of the Big Ten? But that is exactly what they did.
Unbelievable. It really is.
And he got to live it. It only took him 50-some years to get there, but he was there for it.
But his day came.
His day came. Well, we have a fun show, a lot of good topics. And one of the things we're going to do, it's a little fun. There's no doubt Indiana's a darling of the college football world right now. So we're going to have a little fun with their history, especially when it comes to Ohio State.
That certainly will be a lot of fun to get to. There's some other big stories going on. There's a lot of drama around the bowl system in general, outside of the college football playoff, and really even including the college football playoff. But Craig Meyer of USA Today will join us on the show to take a look at the bowl system and the 10 programs that have opted out of even participating in bowl games. And then also we're going to be joined by Max Ralph of PennLive as we take a look at the new head man for the Nittany Lions, that being Matt Campbell.
Well, let's get going.
Let's get going. Let's keep the fun going with Indiana. Let's start off with head coach Curt Cignetti. He grabbed a microphone after winning the Big Ten championship, and as always, whenever Curt grabs a mic, you should put your ears towards wherever that conversation is going. This is what he had to say after winning it at Lucas Oil.
We are Big Ten champions, and you talk about changing the way people think. I got 3.5 weeks to get this team humble and hungry for the playoffs.
Oh, I think he'll get it done. But he did change the way people think. And the other thing he did was, what he's done is so remarkable, everybody wants to know what his magic sauce is. Because everybody that's got a new coach wants that.
Absolutely. Well, and the thing, too, Will, I mean, you say it's magical, and it is. I want to say it's unprecedented. I don't think ever before has somebody taken a program, the all-time losingest program, which is Indiana, and turned them into a winner like this and the #1 team in the country. I don't think it's been done anywhere before.
I don't think so. Not in football. Not at this level.
It's insane. It really is. And really, the Hoosiers might have the Heisman winner, too, as their quarterback.
This whole conversation can't be happening. I mean, we can't be talking about #1 in the country, Indiana, Big Ten champs, Indiana, and they get a Heisman Trophy winner? No.
That might just be the case. That possible Heisman winner, Fernando Mendoza, was talking after the game and being interviewed by Jenny Taft of Fox, and this is what he had to say about, as you kind of put, Will, everything coming together.
It sounds so beautiful. I want to give all the glory to God. We were never supposed to be in this position, but by the glory of God, the great coaches, great teammates, everyone we have around us, we were able to pull this off. Whoever thought the Hoosiers would be here, but now the Hoosiers are flipping champs. Let's go!
You guys call yourself a bunch of misfits who found the right home at Indiana. Why was this the right place for this group?
It's the right place. We're process-oriented. We're going day by day. Whether it's the offensive line, the defense, the coaches, special teams, we're all process-oriented to one goal. That's our thing, is we're brothers. We can drag teams into the deep end because we know that we're going to stick together and we're the strongest glue ever.
Why was that? And, you know, Dalton, when I watched that interview, right, think about all the games we've seen them play, and he's got that stoic look when he's playing, like he's processing. Well, that wasn't the guy. He was crazy.
That's right.
I mean, this isn't the guy that's cool, calm, and collected as these big fellows are chasing him around all the time.
But still so intense.
Oh, yeah. Process, Dalton. We are
That's
process-driven.
That's right. Well, speaking of processes, let's switch over to their rival in basketball. The Purdue Boilermakers head coach Matt Painter talked a little bit after being shellacked by Iowa State, as the #1 team in the country, Purdue was, at that time. And if he had any feelings or thoughts, he was asked by a reporter, about being #1 in the country. Does it mean anything in reflection of that moment?
Yeah, I'd probably asking someone who reflects on it a lot. I don't reflect on it a lot. I don't think about it. Like, I didn't walk away from the Iowa State game and say, well, we're not number one anymore. I walked away from the Iowa State game saying we got our ass kicked. And how could I could have stopped that? You don't look back. And that's kind of the downside to coaching. You can go 34-5 and you sit around thinking about those 5 losses. It makes you miserable. You're like, why you choose this profession? No, seriously. Being number one really isn't, really that important, to be honest with you. Being a number 1 seed is in the tournament. I think that there's nothing wrong with that being a goal. But it's also having one next to your name in March. One next to your name in October, November, December. Who really cares? It's not that big a deal. And it's just, but, some of those teams that can do it and start from the beginning all the way in, that's pretty rare.
Matt Painter, head coach of the Purdue Boilermakers. It's interesting that you look at the landscape of the Big Ten. I mean, they got shellacked at home. Wisconsin got just blown out by Nebraska. Michigan's doubling up teams all over the place. So, I mean, one of the interesting things is I think the Big Ten is really good this year, and people don't get how hard it is to go on the road because of those great fans, which is why how did Iowa State win at Mackey like that? But at the end of the day, it's just these scores are strange. How can these good teams be getting beat by 20 or 30 points?
It really is hard to comprehend, but I think what it does foreshadow is maybe a wild ride of Big Ten basketball this year, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun as we really get into the Big Ten season because it feels like it's all over the place.
I'm not going to talk to Painter when he loses one of those 5 games. I'll talk to him when he wins one of those 30 games. I want that, Matt Painter.
That's a smart man right there.
Thank you.
Let's switch back to football because we have a couple of new head coaches in the Big Ten. One being the new top man for the UCLA Bruins, Bob Chesney, coming over from James Madison as he was introduced as the new head football coach for UCLA.
I believe in the power of UCLA, and I think that's important for everyone in here to understand, right? And I, again, do not want to be the only one believing it, and I know that we have a room full of people that do, and the plan that we'll have in place will allow us to realize that. It will be built on toughness. It will be built on competitiveness.
Well, nobody believed in Indiana football. And we also know in the city of Los Angeles, if you're not good, they don't care. Mm-hmm. Ask Southern Cal, they'll tell you the same thing. It's a tough market.
It certainly is, but you mentioned nobody thought Indiana could be good. Curt Cignetti came from James Madison and turned that around. Can Bob Chesney from James Madison turn this around?
I wonder if they've talked on the phone.
I'm sure they have. Well, let's get to the other new hire in Big Ten football. Penn State, they pick up Matt Campbell, the former Iowa State Cyclone head coach, now making his way to State College, PA. Here's what he had to say in his introductory press conference.
I walked into yesterday, and this incredible Letterman wall, 2,200 names. And you can almost feel goosebumps going down the side of my arms, and you're looking at some of these incredible names. Some of the best, Jack Ham, some of these incredible, the best ever to play the sport of football. You knew their excellence and what they stood for, a blue blood football program, no question. The sacrifice, the passion of so many of you individually to become the best and collectively to have some of the greatest teams in the history of college football. I know this, it's my responsibility to each and every one of you, every single step of the way to link arms with you, to unify us, and to continue to push this program to the greatest heights it's ever seen. I know what I'm inheriting. I know what my responsibility is. And to be honest with you, to link arms with every one of our Lettermen, our former players, and to unify this football program into the greatest football power in the country, I can't wait for that opportunity.
Matt Campbell. Well, one thing, Dalton, he mentioned that I think is really big there. He knows what he signed up for. They won a national championship. They want to win the Big Ten. And that's it. That's the gold standard. And going in, it's good to know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see if he can deliver.
Find out. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to dig a little deeper into the hire of Coach Matt Campbell at Penn State. But first, this break.
So, got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
Medicaid and CHIP offer free or low-cost health coverage for children and teens. Hospital and doctor visits, prescriptions, shots, and more are covered. That's peace of mind for parents if a child is sick or gets injured. And parents may now be eligible for Medicaid too, even if they've applied in the past. Enrollment is always open. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 1-877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you have diabetes, listen up. If you have insurance, you can qualify for a continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends and spend more time in range, significantly lowering your A1C. More importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate, painful finger sticks. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and if you've seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for your own CGM right now. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances will cover your CGM, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the Aptiva Medical CGM Health Hotline right now.
800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. 800-948-6912. That's 800-948-6912.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Roxanne Watson is on a mission.
Hello, how are you doing today?
She wants more people to register as organ, eye, and tissue donors.
Are you an organ donor?
Yes, I am.
Yay.
My goal is to sign up the most people in the United States.
What drives her? Roxanne's own life was saved through the gift of a heart transplant, made possible by an organ donor.
I decided that day that I was going to devote myself to the cause of organ donation and signing people up and honoring my donor by doing that.
Now she's back to health, and she's a powerful force helping to save lives every day through her work. Imagine what you can make possible by leaving behind the gift of life.
8 people can be helped with the major organs, and up to 50 people can be helped with a little bit of everything. And when you think about it that way, that you could help that many people, it's amazing. It really is.
Learn more and sign up as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, Penn State made big news after they let James Franklin go in the middle of the season after some tough setbacks early. And finally, after a lot of conjecture, and everybody got named for that job but you, Dalton, and I thought maybe you were going to be the guy, but Penn State finally now has a football coach moving forward. And joining us to talk about that hire is Max Ralph from PennLive. Max, thanks for joining the show, and can you take us through this search and how you guys wound up where you wound up?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. Just like last time, I think we talked about the search a little bit in the middle of the season, and to be honest with you, things are just so unbelievably different now than they were then. We went 54 days after James Franklin was fired before Matt Campbell was named the head coach, and in those 54 days, as you said, I think there were at least 10 different guys who were just gaining crazy steam online, and none of them more so than BYU's Kalani Sitake, who it seemed like Penn State kind of had a handshake agreement in place with him, and it took just an outpouring of support from BYU fans and donors to keep him around. And then Pat Kraft makes this pivot to Matt Campbell pretty quickly, and I think like a lot of people are kind of down on Kraft because this search has been so topsy-turvy. You miss out on this guy who, you've clearly identified as your target and is a guy who is an alum at the school he's coaching at, and he's hard to pull away. And everybody says, okay, what are you doing? He makes this pivot to Matt Campbell, and look, might not be the name that was on the top of a lot of people's lists, but I think he made a really good hire, and Matt Campbell was introduced this week, and everything he said backed that up. It was non-typical, non-traditional. Like this was so many different turns, a lot of stress for everybody involved in the process. But at the end of the day, I think Penn State's in a pretty good spot right now.
Well, and I think that feels like the most appropriate way to put it. As Will said, you started going through these months. I feel like I'm the next choice if we don't get Matt Campbell there in Happy Valley. It felt like it was starting to get desperate. And to your point, it felt like the BYU deal was going to be linked, but then all of a sudden you hear the story about Crumble Cookie and maybe their possible alleged work to keep BYU in the position they're in. And then you end up in this spot. And I want to ask you about some of that pressure because there was the leaked audio from Athletic Director Pat Kraft. And as a part of that audio, I didn't listen to all of it, but he had mentioned in there, I've got to get this right or I don't get another job as an AD at the Power 5. This would be it for me. Like the pressure felt that tangible for Penn State and Pat Kraft.
Oh, easily. And I'm glad you bring that up because I don't think anyone's overlooking this necessarily, but you have to remember, James Franklin won 104 games at Penn State. He was a very solid coach who gave this place a floor that it really needed because of what the program's situation was when he took over. James Franklin did a great job, but Pat Kraft made this gamble because it seemed like, though the floor was pretty high under James Franklin, the ceiling wasn't as high as it could be at Penn State. And so Kraft made this gamble. And as you're going down the line of all these guys, either signing extensions, Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, Mike Elko at Texas A&M, then Kalani Sitake at BYU, I think the chair under Pat Kraft starts to get hotter and hotter. But he really salvaged it with a nice hire. And you mentioned the leaked audio. He's right. I mean, if he botched this hire, which obviously the book's still out on Matt Campbell and what this program will be moving forward. But on the surface, it's a really good hire, and Kraft made a great situation out of a difficult one. But if he doesn't get it right, yeah, he's probably done here. He probably doesn't get the chance to make a second hire, and that's all partially because James Franklin was so entrenched and was so well regarded in the industry to begin with. You don't make that move without thinking that you can increase the ceiling at Penn State. So Kraft put the pressure on himself, and look, he is certainly, in all my interactions with him, he's not a guy that's afraid of pressure, but it certainly was there, and, I think Penn State came out of it pretty well.
Well, Max, do you think the feeling still is if you don't win us a national championship, you're out?
Yeah, look, I think with Matt Campbell, I talked about this on one of our PennLive podcasts recently. Somebody asked a similar question. I think it's like within the first 3 years, you need to see him make the playoff, and you need to see Penn State be a consistent playoff team that's having a shot at national championships every year, that's winning in the first round or earning a bye. I think that's what this has to be because, I mean, I don't think – maybe there are some people who don't think this, but your Ohio States, your Georgias, your other schools that are always in that top four that are shelling out money like crazy. Penn State's closer to them than a lot of people, but they're still not quite there. The financial involvement from Pat Kraft and the athletic department is increasing a lot under Matt Campbell, and that's going to make a difference. They're going to be able to recruit. They're going to be able to get transfers. Their assistant staff is going to be huge. But I think that the expectation at Penn State is competing for national championships. From my perspective, I don't think if Matt Campbell doesn't win one within his first 5 years, that it necessarily means he needs to be canned. I think the goal is to at least be in the playoff and feeling like you have a shot at winning every year, not just being that team that sneaks in as the 12 seed or probably the soon-to-be 16 seed. and gets in and loses right away. They have to be competitive. It has to feel like it's a possibility, but I don't think you have to win to keep this job.
You know what's really fascinating to me, too, we talk about the coaching search for Pat Kraft, and you end up with Matt Campbell through this entire topsy-turvy, as you described it, venture. And Matt Campbell isn't just a save before the buzzer for Pat Kraft and Penn State. Matt Campbell's been a darling and one of the hottest coaching names in the coaching carousel year after year after year, and nobody could ever get him to leave Iowa State. What got him finally away from the Cyclones and decided to go to Happy Valley?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's one of the most fascinating pieces about this because he was very transparent, too. There were a couple times where he got close to leaving Iowa State, but every single time he just came back to, if I'm going to leave, it has to be about my family, and it has to be about – and I've said this quote a couple times, but this is what Campbell said, essentially, is if I'm going to leave, it has to be somewhere where I feel like I can go and finish my career. At Penn State, if he succeeds, the fan base will adore him. There will be no reason for him to leave. He'll be well compensated. It will be competitive with everybody else out there. He's closer to his family here. He's from Eastern Ohio, very close to his family, his wife's family. That's a big deal for him. And I just think that is such a good example of the fit for him. I mean, it was very clear how difficult it was for him to leave Iowa State. And when you talk about Iowa State, this is a program that just simply doesn't have what a Penn State or many other Power 4 programs have. They just don't in a lot of different ways. So the fact that he was willing to stay there for so long is a testament to his loyalty, a testament to really how well he's going to fit at Penn State, at least on that aspect. Like I said, success on the field is most important above everything else. But from a culture fit, from a personality fit, it was pretty clear that Matt Campbell is a home run for Penn State and really understands like what it means to be here and wants to be here.
Well, Max, obviously after the overtime Oregon loss, the train came off the tracks. So what do you think Coach Campbell's got to do first to get this thing back in the right direction?
Yeah, I will say I think he already did the first thing that he had to do, and that was keeping Terry Smith on his staff, who did a just tremendous job as the interim head coach for Penn State. Had a lot of support to become the full-time guy, but he is a Penn Stater through and through, played here, was a captain here, has been on the staff since Franklin took over. He needed to be here. From recruiting on field, from in the locker room, his honesty, his motivation, he was priority number one, and they got that done. Campbell said that was one of his first questions in the interview process was, hey, what do you think about keeping him? And Pat Kraft was all on board with that as well. I think that was number one. And number two is really going to be, how does he build this roster? Because even though they kept Terry, even though that Penn State has the money to keep a lot of guys, this team is going to look so much different next year because there are double-digit seniors who are out of eligibility that contributed to this team. There are a lot of young players who Penn State will try to retain, but there are going to be some guys who you just simply can't because there are going to be absolute bags thrown at them from some schools elsewhere in the transfer portal. It's just going to happen. And so he's really got to get to work on, is it bringing a lot of guys from Iowa State? Probably. Is it, finding and scouting guys in the portal from, the G5 level? I think that's part of it. He already brought his GM from Iowa State with him to be the GM at Penn State. And they did a really nice job scouting and developing guys. And so that's the key. They got Terry in place. His name's Derek Hoosier. They got him in place. Now they really need to get working like today, probably yesterday, on scouting this current team, figuring out how to keep as many guys together as you can, and working on the portal because there are going to be a lot of changes on the roster next year.
Well, Max, as always, appreciate you joining us. Penn State's going to be a fun story to watch as we get closer to next year's kickoff. So stay warm.
You too.
There you go. Some of the thoughts from Max Ralph from PennLive as Penn State is retooling, getting ready for the next football season with its brand new head coach, Matt Campbell. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, we're going to talk about Dark Day 1 and Dark Day 2. It's all coming up in just a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little? But thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
This is a potter's field. When people can't pay for their funerals, they are buried here. It is a lonely, desolate place, littered with unmarked headstones. No one visits. No one leaves flowers. But it doesn't have to be that way. For as low as $1 a day, you can ensure your family will have the money to pay your funeral expenses. We offer burial insurance plans that pay up to $30,000. Considering the average funeral costs more than $10,000, that's peace of mind for your family. There are no medical exams, your rates won't increase, and your policy cannot be canceled as long as you make your premium payments. Call now to get approved in minutes and ensure your final resting place is more than just a pauper's grave in a potter's field.
800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. 800-562-2407. That's 800-562-2407. Paid for by Final Expense Direct.
We all make choices about alcohol. Kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad. Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations, and they want honest answers in everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path, because when you talk, they hear you. Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Here's a real-life story that affects 50% of all of us out there. It's called divorce. If you've gotten divorced and now you're struggling to pay your bills and your credit card debts are completely out of control, you need to call this special debt relief hotline right now. We help people with all kinds of money problems caused by different life challenges, a divorce, a job loss, even heavy medical bills. All these life events can sometimes financially stress you out and cause you to get out of control. We help people get their lives back by showing them ways to consolidate and reduce their debt, in some cases for a fraction of what they owe. If your credit card balances are more than $10,000, call us and learn how to reduce your credit card bills and monthly payments now. Here's our number.
Paid for by Debt.com. Call now, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584, 800-810-1584. That's 800-810-1584.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetland. Don't forget, Auto Owners Insurance, simple human sense. Ask your independent agent if auto motorists make sense for you. Well, the Indiana Hoosiers, no doubt, are the darlings of the college football world right now, and they should be. And you ask yourself, when's the last time they beat Ohio State? Well, good question, because it hasn't happened a lot. In one of the fun moments, it actually happened in back-to-back years. We're going to go back to the 80s just for a second. So think about an All-American running back named Anthony Thompson, and think about a Buckeye head coach named Earl Bruce. Okay, we're going to start off our little narrative here by going back to 1987. It was in Columbus, where Indiana went there and beat the Buckeyes 31-10. And with that, this game got a label thanks to Coach Earl Bruce.
Of course, they had a good running back, like you said. I mean, he ran the ball well against us. We were not the defensive football team we probably should have been in that game, anywhere near the. I mean, and the thing that they did that hurt us, I'll never forget. I kept saying, "My God, they ran a guy in motion. We're playing zone defense. They ran him down the field about 15 yards and curled in front of our safety man and caught the ball." And they moved the chains. You know what I mean? Whenever it became possible, they moved the chains. They had a hell of a play, a hell of a thing. I said, when are we going to go to man-to-man, match that guy up and stay with him so he can't catch the ball, put some heat on the quarterback, whatever. but we didn't do that. And they really, I think that score, if you look at it, is 31-10, and they dominated that football game. And in fact, I said, Bill Mallory and I are close friends. He's a great football coach. He was the coach. I said, this is a black day in the history of Ohio State football, a very dark day to lose to Indiana. We don't normally do that, but that was telling our football team something, you know.
Dark day number 1, courtesy of Buckeye coach Earl Bruce. By the way, Dalton, he was the head coach, right?
Yep.
So why does he have to ask permission for his defensive guys to go to man coverage?
It's a good follow-up.
I mean, yeah. Hey, I'm the head coach. Get out of whatever you're doing, right. You know, right? Anyway, just a thought. Okay, now, there was a great running back, and Coach Bruce mentioned him, and he was Anthony Thompson. He was an All-American at Indiana. Just to give you a little perspective on this guy, in 1988 was his first year that he really blossomed. He gained over 1,600 yards, had 26 touchdowns. The next year in 89, he rushed for almost 1,800 yards. Now, this is Indiana football.
Right.
This isn't like UCLA in its prime or Southern Cal. He had 24 touchdowns that season, and when he left Indiana, he had the NCAA record for the most touchdowns scored by a running back. Okay, so you know this guy's pretty good. So this is what Anthony Thompson's mindset was like heading into the second game the next year with Ohio State.
My sophomore year, Earl Bruce said that this was the darkest day in Ohio State's football history. And that following year, we dubbed our game against the Ohio State Buckeyes, we dubbed it Dark Day 2. And so we had our mindset that we're gonna pound the Buckeyes, and we're going to crush the Buckeyes. That was our thing, crush the Buckeyes. But you know what? If somebody would have told me that we would beat them the way that we beat them, I would have never believed it.
It was 41-7. Dark Day 2 was worse than Dark Day 1. But anyway, so what's interesting, so Indiana has those 2 great wins against Ohio State. The next one wouldn't come until 2025, and we just saw it. That's a little bit of a drought. But what we're really talking about, though, Dalton, is when is the last time Indiana actually won the outright title?
And for that, you have to flash back to 1945. It gets a lot more dramatic than what we just talked about with the late 80s. You go back to 1945, we thought, let's kind of encapsulate what that year was. The last time the Hoosiers were outright Big Ten champs, 80 years ago. In sports, your World Series champions were the Detroit Tigers. Your NFL champions, the Cleveland Rams. That's right, the Cleveland Rams. Stanley Cup champs, actually Canada used to win Stanley Cups. It was the Toronto Maple Leafs back during that time. The U.S. Open for golf was actually not held because of World War II, which was, of course, a thing the last time Indiana won the outright Big Ten championship. Your college football champions, Army. Your college basketball champions, Oklahoma A&M. This is all the year, 1945, last time Indiana won this. I figured Will's actually, pretty admittedly, I think, a really good pop culture buff. I'm curious if I could tickle you with some of the classics of 1945.
Well, you know I'm a movie buff.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Oscar-winning movie that year was Bing Crosby starring in Going My Way. And by the way, it still holds up, Dalton. So if you ever want to go online and watch it, it's a good one. And also, the Oscar-winning song, Swinging on a Star, came from that movie. So they won a couple Oscars there. But since you're a brand new papa, here were the most popular names in 1945. If it was a gal, it was Mary. If it was a guy, it was James, and you didn't pick either one of those.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't pick either one of those, and also the name Dalton wasn't there. The movie Roadhouse wasn't out yet in 1945, right?
It was coming. It was coming. So anyway, gas cost yourself 21 cents a gallon, a movie ticket between 25 and 40 cents. So a family home was between $3,000 and $4,100, and you could buy a brand new car for $1,020 on average.
Oh, gosh.
I'll take 2.
I was going to say, I think I read the $1 was worth $18 today in 1945.
Oh, it's crazy.
That's insane.
It's crazy. But anyway, 45 was a good year for a lot of things, especially Indiana football. So when we come back with more of the sports life, we're going to talk with Craig Meyer of USA Today, and we're going to talk about this crazy bowl situation. It's all coming up in just a moment.
So, I got one for you, boss.
Oh, yeah?
What's black, white, and dented all over?
I give up.
The company truck. I know, but thanks to our agent, we've already submitted an insurance claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Lucky for you, that's simple human sense.
Ask your independent agent if auto owners make sense for you.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of uncertainty lurking under your hood. You know the feeling. I know I do. That sudden sinking sensation when you see a check engine light or your car unexpectedly breaks down and you're faced with sky-high repair bills. It's time to shield against unexpected repairs with CarShield. CarShield is America's most trusted auto protection company and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Don't let the fear of a breakdown keep you up at night. Trust the Shield, CarShield, and say goodbye to terrifying repair bills and hello to peace of mind. Your plan also comes with 24/7 roadside assistance, courtesy towing, rental car options, and so much more. Don't wait till it's too late. Call CarShield now before a breakdown. Protect your wallet. Protect your car with CarShield. Get our best protection ever. Call now. You'll thank me later. 800-965-1292. 800-965-1292. That's 800-965-1292.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment, email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
And welcome back from the Sports Life. Will Tiemann here along with Dalton Shetler. Well, I think we kind of knew this day was coming, that people would look at the 40-plus bowl games that we have every year, and most of them not well attended, and maybe go, is this worth it really? Is it better to spend more time working to build our team for next year? Because we're going to have to rebuild half of it anyway because of the portal. Well, it's sort of happened. Of the 40-some bowl games already, Notre Dame heading the list, 10 schools have said, we have no interest in postseason play. And joining us to talk about this now is Chris Meyer from USA Today. And Chris, thanks for joining us. And the one thing Dalton and I have talked about before the show started, we have 10 right now saying we want no piece of this, which leads us to wonder, is this the beginning of the end of the bowl system that has imploded and maybe being ruined by greed?
I think at least as you look at now, it at least exists, as a possibility. So I know we'll look back on in 10 or 15 years, if there's a fraction of the bowl games that we have now, or if there's no bowl system at all, we would look back at this being like, this was sort of the seminal moment there. This was the beginning of the end. I think just because you've got a team with Notre Dame's brand and history, prestige, a very good team with a bunch of NFL talent on it that a lot of us for the past few weeks had presumed was going to be in the playoff, basically just saying no thanks. We don't want any part of this. I think that you can maybe look at as this being a byproduct of some really understandable and raw emotions from a team and a program that had seen its dreams get sort of unexpectedly ripped away from it, where they for weeks were in the playoff field, and then even after not even playing a game, just kind of had that taken away from them. So I think that it's possible, if anything does come from this, that we would kind of look back on this as the moment where everything changed. But I still am a little skeptical, though. I think that for years people have kind of talked about, especially over the past 10, 15 years here about the sort of function that the bowl system serves and whether there's still kind of a place for it. And it's still here, and people, if you look at the ratings, people still watch those games. So I think it'll take much more than this to really fundamentally change it or even kill it off. But I do think that this could be one domino that could lead to several others falling. I think it'll be interesting to see where we go in the next couple of years here and see whether other teams that barely miss the playoff end up following suit.
Well, Craig, I want to ask you a follow-up kind of along those lines because you're right there. It does serve a purpose for ESPN and their corporate partnerships with these bowl games because if you're talking about 40 bowl games and ESPN has, 90% of those? They have all but 2, I think, if memory serves right. It serves a purpose for that. But what's the value for some of these schools where you're talking about it's not the college football playoff, who knows how many players we're going to have opt out of this bowl game anyways if we decide to play in it. And why don't we turn our attention to the transfer portal, see if we can't arm up a little bit better and maybe make the college football playoff that means something the following year. There's a value for ESPN. There's a value for corporations. What's the value for the schools?
I know that for years coaches would always, they always loved going to bowls because it's the way they saw it. It's like, hey, these are, 10 or 15 extra practices we get. I know even now that some coaches can, especially with players opting out, older players, more experienced players who are going to the NFL or who want to focus on the next phase of their lives, they won't play, but it'll give you a chance to see some younger players getting valuable game experiencing, giving them sort of an idea of whether this is someone, whether it's a quarterback or a safety or a linebacker, whether this guy can be a foundational building block and a potential starter next year. So I think and then they'll use that determination. And kind of figure out, hey, is this a spot that I'll have to dip into the portal for, or is this someone that I can really lean on in the years to come? So I think that there's that with that. I do think it's interesting. There's understandably been a lot of attention paid to Notre Dame over these past couple days here, but I do think it's interesting to look at sort of the inverse of that, where you've got a Vanderbilt team who went 10-2 this season, just like Notre Dame, finished, I believe, in the top 15 of the playoff rankings. So they were one of the first teams to miss the cut. I mean, they obviously were in a different spot. They weren't seen as a safe playoff team. I think it was sort of understood that they had a great season, but except that they weren't going to make the cut. But, their coach, Clark Lee, said this week, he's like, no, we love playing football. We're going to play. We're going to play in a bowl game. So I think it's a program-to-program thing. I think, I think a lot of people kind of savor, players particularly sort of savor this opportunity to get one more time to go out with their friends, especially if they're seniors and their careers winding down here. I mean, I think that they do value these kinds of opportunities, and this chance to go out and, maybe show off a bit to NFL scouts, to get an opportunity, even just on a more emotional level, just to get one more time to go out there, with these guys who they fought in blood with for the past 4 or 5 years. So I think that there is something with that where, it varies by program, by circumstance. But I do think that there are people out there who still see value in the bowl games.
Well, Craig, this is really a philosophical question, but you really hit on the one meaningful part of all this. One more shot at going out with your buddies. Yep. And I wonder, in the case of Notre Dame, where they just put out a, 2-3 paragraph statement, signed the team, that we're not going to go to postseason play. I just wonder if those guys later in life will go, man, I wish we had gone so we could have all done it one more time together. I just wonder if that's in the works or that may creep up later in their lives.
Yeah, I would be fascinated to see how that team vote went because, even if they held the team vote and the majority of players said, hey, we really, we had come here to try to compete for a national title, play in the college football playoff. We don't really want to play in what's effectively a glorified exhibition. Even if there were a majority among the 110 players, to do that. I mean, there are certainly voices and players in that room who wanted to play. Who wanted to have that kind of one more shot. And it's interesting too, because before team opt-outs, there were player opt-outs. Where it was most of the guys who were projected high NFL draft picks who didn't want to focus on draft prep, didn't want to jeopardize or risk getting a potential injury. And I had previously covered Pitt, and they had a very good 2021 season. Kenny Pickett was a Heisman Trophy finalist. They won the ACC, ended up playing Michigan. They ended up playing Michigan State in the Peach Bowl, and Kenny Pickett opted out of that game. There was a big debate, basically like, should he do this? Is this wrong? Does it kind of say something about him? And I always understood why he did. And he ended up being a first-round pick. You don't want to risk potentially suffering a major injury that could hurt your draft stock and and your potential health down the line. But I remember talking with a former player, the former Pitt player who is still connected and still pretty tight with the program, and he had told me, saying, "Hey, I get why Kenny's doing this, but he's going to be a first-round draft pick. I'm kind of skeptical that he'll be someone who will be a long-term NFL starter." He ended up being right on that. But he'll play 8 to 10 years in the league, mostly as a backup. And I just think that he's going to look back on this and say, I really wish that I would have played that game. I had one more chance to go out there with these guys who I went through early morning lifting sessions with, went through some really trying times with, and who I formed these really tight bonds with. And Pitt's a program that doesn't get to play, in a major New Year's Six bowl game too often. And I've always kind of thought about that, whenever I see player opt-outs, as much as I understand why those players do that, I do kind of wonder, they're doing in the short term what they believe is best for them. But I do kind of wonder if it's somewhere they look back on, when they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, whether they look back on that time and say, knowing what I know now, I wish I would have done things differently.
Craig, as a final thought, 40-plus bowl games, 10 schools say they are not going to go to postseason play, which tells us the math is pretty simple. There will be teams with losing records in bowl games. Is there any way there's any discussion that you've heard of that maybe cutting the number of bowl games down so you actually have teams with winning records in there?
Yeah, I think that, I think the talk, kind of existential questions about the future of bowls and whether we're kind of seeing the beginning of the end of them here. I think what's more likely is you'll probably see a reduction in bowls where for some of these places it just isn't financially or logistically viable for them to stage them anymore. So as opposed to 41 games, you'll maybe in the future see 30 games, where you're getting 60 teams between all of those games. That's less than half of the FBS membership. I think something like that would be a little more likely, than just the outright death of the bowl season. Sorry for the noise there in the background. It's the fun part about doing this from my car. But what we're seeing now, I mean, this is, I guess, where it gets kind of concerning. Where you think about where these bowls go from here. Where you see some of the teams that have reportedly turned down bowl invites. Where you have Rutgers, where they went 5-7 this year. They reportedly turned down a bowl opportunity. I mean, I think it's especially interesting too because they were a 5-7 bowl participant just 4 years ago. 2021. Now, granted, they were playing in the Gator Bowl, which is a slightly more prestigious game. But then I think the opportunity this year was with the Birmingham Bowl. But and then Kansas, Kansas also reportedly turned down a bowl invite. They've played in 2 bowls since 2009. So I mean, these aren't programs. It's not like Alabama, or it's not like Auburn or Florida State this year, who are both 5-7 teams who turned it down. I mean, those are programs with national championships in the past 15 years, real storied histories. In Auburn's case, there's a new coach. But I guess kind of circling back, I would think that it's more likely that you maybe see some of these bowls where they really struggle to get teams in there, where you're having to get a 5-7 team from the Sun Belt to actually be able to stage a bowl. I think you'll maybe see games like that sort of vanish, but I think that there will always be a place for this holiday TV inventory. There's something very valuable in giving people something to do that allows them to avoid talking to their families, especially about some kind of uncomfortable conversations after a bourbon or two. So I these games always get ratings, especially some of the bigger and more prestigious ones. So I think as long as that's the case, you're always going to have at least some kind of bowl system.
Well, Craig, I really appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great holiday season, and we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate y'all having me on.
Some of the thoughts of Craig Meyer from USA Today. So, Don, what do you think about all this?
Well, I think one thing's really interesting. The point about maybe avoiding family is really pertinent. It was a great point by Craig and funny.
By the way, I got a kick out of the bourbon reference.
That's right. But one thing I thought was interesting, when you're talking about a couple of these programs that have decided to opt out and the fines that followed from the Big 12 Conference to 2 of those programs, the Big 12 has a partnership with ESPN. That's one of their TV rights holders. If we're looking at this from the Big 10 perspective, as we do on this show, Rutgers opts out, there's no real reason to hand a fine because CBS, Fox, and NBC aren't really represented that well in the bowl system. It is largely ESPN and Disney. So I think from the Big 10 perspective, they don't really owe ESPN anything because they don't have rights with ESPN anymore. I think that's an interesting thing to keep in mind from the Big 10 perspective solely as they go through these waters of the bowl system in the future.
Good point. Well, when we come back with more of the Sports Life, some parting shots in just a moment.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Dad. Did you get a new haircut or something? A new shirt? You're looking good.
What happened?
A little fender bender?
How little?
A few days in the shop little, but thanks to Mom and our agent, we've already submitted a claim and can track the status right from the app. Auto Owners pays what they owe without any hassle.
Sounds like simple human sense.
I'm fine, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Ask your independent agent if Auto Owners makes sense for you.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. 800-298-9093. That's 800-298-9093.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone. Connect with your friends. Stay in touch with your community. And know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope. Furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
We'll be back with more in a moment. This is The Sports Life.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking?
Al-Anon and Alateen can help.
Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
I'm Naheem Hines, professional football player. No matter the challenges I face every day in the NFL, my mom is always there for me, despite her own struggles with muscular dystrophy. And MDA is there for my mom. At their 150 care centers across the U.S., MDA is the leading organization in research and care for kids and adults with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and related neuromuscular diseases. Join me and learn more at helpmda.org today. Thank you.
And welcome back for more of the Sports Life. Will Teeman here along with Dalton Shetler. Fun show this week. And now we have worked our way to our parting shots. What do you got, Dalton?
Well, first, I want to remind everybody, make sure you give us a follow on Twitter or X at Sports Life Now is where you can find us. That's, again, at Sports Life Now. We'll have everything posted there. But for my parting shot, I wanted to highlight the work being done in hoops right now by the Big Ten Conference, because on the men's side, you have 6 teams ranked in the national top 25 by the AP poll. On the women's side, you have 9 teams ranked in the top 25. That's half the league on the women's side is ranked nationally in the AP Top 25 poll. So altogether, you have 15 Big Ten teams that are nationally ranked between men's and women's, and 4 schools are ranked in both: Michigan State, Michigan, Nebraska, and UCLA. So, look, we talk a lot about how good Big Ten basketball is. That's just kind of excessive and ridiculous at this point.
Well, a little bit, just a little bit. Well, I want to take a moment to talk about a person that had a big impact in the sport of college football, and he had nothing to do with the Big Ten. His name is Roy Kramer. Roy Kramer was a great young football coach at Central Michigan and won a Division II national championship, and then from there went to Vanderbilt to become their athletic director. And then from Vanderbilt, he became the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. And when Roy Kramer wound up in the SEC as commissioner, that's probably where he did his most impactful work. As the College Football Hall of Famer, was a guy that gave us the BCS. Now, I know the BCS had critics, but what he did, he saw the need for where we are now, a need to play for something, play for the national championship. And I could go on and on about Roy Kramer, all the stuff he did, but at the end of the day, Roy Kramer is one of those people that has made college football great. He passed away at the age of 96, and he was just one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. And with that, that is a wrap for this week's show. And as always, we should make a note that you can find us wherever you find your podcasts, like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Apple. And make sure to check us out and hit subscribe. And as always, thanks to the Big Ten Network. The Sports Life is produced by Dalton Shetler, and our executive producer is Wendy Hart. So on behalf of Dalton, I'm Will Teeman, and thanks for your time.